When you dose epinephrine, there are different modalities that you will be giving epinephrine. One is through a nebulized racemic epinephrine treatment. This comes in a 2.25% solution, which is diluted in a 3 ml normal saline. You, again, can give this drug IV push, IM, or IO, which stands for interosseous. You typically see a 1 to 10,000 concentration, which is 1 milligram in 10 mLs. You give this drug at 0.01 milligram per kilo every 3 to 5 minutes. Keep in mind that 1 to 10,000 also is equivalent to 0.1 milligrams per ml or 100 mics per ml. Infusion, you would dose it 1 to 16 mics per minute or 0.01 to 1 mic per kilo per minute. And also a cardiac dose is a 0.03 mic per kilo per minute because it primarily affects beta-1 receptors. Welcome back to CRNA School Prep Academy. I'm your host, Jenny Fennell, and today we're going to talk about epinephrine. If you missed last week's episode, we talked about norepinephrine, so be sure to go back and listen to that episode. So without further ado, let's go ahead and break down epinephrine. All right, so what is epinephrine? Epinephrine is also known as adrenaline. It's a crucial hormone and a neurotransmitter in the body's response to stress or danger. It produces a fight or flight reaction. It can be administered exogenously to exert a therapeutic effect. All right, let's get into the pharmacological action. So first we have the classification, which is that it's a sympathomimetic medication mimicking the effects of the sympathetic nervous system. It's primarily used in various clinical settings, but including anaphylaxis, cardiac arrest, and to prolong the effects of local anesthetics due to its vasoconstrictive properties. Let's go ahead and talk about the mechanism of action. So the adrenergic receptor activation, it stimulates both the alpha and beta adrenergic receptors, facilitating a comprehensive sympathetic nervous system effect. We have your alpha-1, which promotes vasoconstriction, increasing peripheral resistance and blood pressure. And then we have your beta-1, which enhances cardiac activity by increasing heart rate and force of contraction. And then you have your beta-2, which induces bronchodilation and vasodilatation in skeletal muscle, improving oxygen delivery. Keep in mind that alpha-2 is also activated, but it works as a negative feedback loop. Let's go on to the release and metabolism. So epinephrine is produced in the adrenal medulla and released into the bloodstream during stress. The metabolism of epinephrine is primarily through the liver and other tissues with the enzymes MAO, which stands for monoamine oxidase, and COMT, which stands for catechol-O-methyltransferase. So the molecular action is where we have receptor binding, which epinephrine binds to adrenergic receptors, activating cyclic AMP or CAMP in pathways in target cells. Cyclic AMP or CAMP, when it increases, leads to various physiological changes, including increased heart rate, which is a positive chromotropic effect, and increased myocardial contractility, which is a positive inotropic effect. It also causes the relaxation of smooth muscles in the airways. All right, now into dosing. So when you dose epinephrine, there are different modalities that you will be giving epinephrine. One is through a nebulized racemic epinephrine treatment. This comes in a 2.25% solution, which is diluted in a 3 ml normal saline. You, again, can give this drug IV push, IM, or IO, which stands for interosseous. You typically see a 1 to 10,000 concentration, which is 1 milligram in 10 mLs. You give this drug at 0.01 milligram per kilo every 3 to 5 minutes. Keep in mind that 1 to 10,000 also is equivalent to 0.1 milligrams per ml or 100 mics per ml. Infusion, you would dose it 1 to 16 mics per minute, or 0.01 to 1 mic per kilo per minute. And also a cardiac dose is a 0.03 mic per kilo per minute because it primarily affects beta-1 receptors. All right, now for some fun trivia and facts. What happens to systolic, diastolic, pulse, and mean arterial pressures with low-dose epinephrine? So for your systolic blood pressure, you will have increases due to beta-1 receptor-mediated increase in cardiac output. For your diastolic pressure, you will have a decrease due to beta-2 receptor-mediated vasodilatation. And then for your pulse pressure, you typically see an increase. And for mean arterial pressure, generally it increases, but it could decrease or it could remain unchanged. The change in mean arterial pressure depends on how much systolic pressure increases and how much diastolic pressure decreases. All right, so if the mean arterial pressure decreases with low-dose epinephrine, what adrenergic receptor would be responsible? This would be your beta-2 adrenergic receptors. Beta-2 adrenergic receptor stimulation leads to a decrease in systemic vascular resistance, which decreases diastolic blood pressure and possibly mean arterial pressure as well. Epinephrine is metabolized by what enzymes? If you recall, epinephrine is metabolized by the MAO and the COMT enzyme.
Well, hello, future CRNA. Another daily dose of inspiration along your CRNA journey. This success story from our student starts as follows. I had my first ever interview yesterday afternoon and received the call this morning that I have been accepted into my top choice program. I'm still in shock and so excited. I didn't think this would ever be possible this year since I hadn't been able to get any interviews at the other two schools I had applied to, but I kept studying and I kept praying. The timing was perfect and it happened exactly how it was supposed to. I'm so grateful for this community, the support and encouragement from everyone. The hard work that Jenny, Richard, and Dawn have put into this has been life-changing for me. Huge thank you to Haley Frank for a wonderful mock interview back in October. 100% recommend. The 5-day interview prep was so helpful as well as all the other resources. I watched all the mock interviews as well. For those that compare yourself to others just like I did, just know that everyone has a different path. I have 3 years of CV ICU experience, a CCRN, CSE, GRE of 302, a cumulative GPA of a 3.2. The last 60 credits, though, of GPA was a 3.7 and a science GPA of a 3.5. I really believe the interview is what pushed me to the top because I was able to answer questions precisely, show my personality and my clinical knowledge. Keep pushing forward because if I can do this, so can you. So I love this story because maybe they were having doubts about their overall GPA being closer to 3.2. But what I want to point out here is that they broke down their GPA between what was the last 60 credit hour GPA as well as the science GPA and overall. So know that your GPA is not just one number. It has multiple moving parts to it. So you have to really know them all in order to make better decisions about how to move forward. I also love the fact that, they seemed like they were facing a lot of fear and a lot of doubt whether this was going to be possible for them, but the timing just worked and they never would have experienced the success had they not tried. They applied and they got in. So for those of you who are questioning whether to wait a year, just apply and see what happens. Now, I will also caution you to make sure that you know if your school has an application limit. Some schools only allow you to apply once or twice or maybe 3 times. So make sure you know that prior to just winging it. I'm not saying to just wing it and get one in just to get it in. But I do think if you start the process of trying to apply to CRNA school and getting the feedback on how to move forward if you're not selected, is really the quickest way to gain acceptance to CRNA schools. So just start putting yourself out there and then take the feedback. So I hope you guys enjoyed this inspirational story. Congratulations, you know who you are, and I'm so excited for you. I'm rooting for you all the way through. Now back to the show.
All right, now into some dose calculations and mixtures. If you have 25 mLs of 0.25% bupivacaine with epinephrine 1 to 200,000, I want you to calculate the amount of each drug in milligrams. So first, you again have 0.25% of bupivacaine, which is 2.5 milligrams per ml. So, and again, in order to do that, you just move the decimal place over by one spot. So any percentage you have, again, you move it over by one spot and you get the milligrams per ml. And again, you're looking at 2.5 milligrams per ml times 25 mLs, which equals 62.5 milligrams of bupivacaine. You then have to figure out the concentration of 1 to 200,000 of epinephrine. And in order to do this calculation, you have to see this ratio is equivalent to essentially saying 1,000 milligrams in 200,000 mLs. So if you divide 1,000 milligrams into 200,000 mLs, you get 5 mics per ml, or 0.005 milligrams per ml. Since we want our answer in milligrams, you then would take the 0.005 milligrams per ml and you times it by 25 mLs, which will equal 0.125 milligrams of epinephrine. If you guys are listening, I am going to be providing these notes in a PDF format. And inside these notes, I'm going to have a little chart that's going to have a concentration and ratios with the dose equivalents and the percent. And this, I think, will help you kind of practice your calculations. This is a pretty standard type of formula or equation that you will see in anesthesia that you will get very accustomed to doing head math with. So again, I provided the chart for you in the PDF notes that are listed in the show notes below. So you go ahead and grab that. Okay, but we're going to practice one more problem just to kind of drive this home. So now let's say you have 1 to 100,000, or equivalent to saying 1,000 milligrams and 100,000 mLs. This equals 0.01 milligrams per ml, or 10 mics per ml. In order to get 10 or the milligrams to mics, you simply take the decimal place and you move it over by 3 places. And 1 to 100,000 is essentially saying that you have 1,000 milligrams in 100,000 mLs, which if you divide that, you will get 0.01 milligrams per ml, which is equivalent to 10 mics per ml. All right, to wrap this episode up, what drugs can you give down an endotracheal tube? So to make this easy, just remember the acronym NAVAL. NAVAL stands for Narcan, Atropine, Vasopressin, Epinephrine, and Lidocaine. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It was fun to make, and we'll see you next week. We're going to cover NEO next week, so stay tuned, or phenylephrine. So again, if you missed last week's episode, we did norepinephrine. This week was epinephrine, and next week will be phenylephrine. So again, I hope you enjoy this little mini vasopressor series. And until next time, take care.
Hey, future CRNA, as always, I appreciate you and your loyalty. Thank you so very much for tuning in this week. I'd love to hear from you, so screenshot this episode and share it to your IG stories with your biggest takeaway. Don't forget to tag me at CRNA School Prep Academy so I can personally thank you. Be sure to head over to CRNASchoolPrepAcademy.com to check out our blog and gather free resources to help you along your CRNA journey. Stay strong, and I'll see you next week.